nice to, start this week being 1-0 in the conference, beating probably the hottest team in our conference in New Mexico, and just to be able to get that win. I thought we played really, really well on offense, as sharp as Walker's looked in a long time. I thought we played a complete game offensively as far as running, throwing the football, running the ball on our terms. Did a good job on defense, stopping the run. And, we got some things to get fixed in the pass game, which we will. Starting on, our first road game in conference against Wyoming at Laramie, which is a tough place to play. Jay's a really good football coach, been coaching for a long time. Was a long-time defensive coordinator, been promoted head coach. And, they're going to be a well-coached football team. We had our hands full last year against them. So we expect the same. It's going to be a hard-fought game. Had our first practice today and had some time off over the weekend, being that we played on Friday, and hopefully that helps us to be fresh. And we're looking forward to this matchup on the road for our second conference game.
Very good, Keno. SB Nation, Mountain West Connection. Speaking of Coach Sawell, and he's kind of from the Craig Bowl area, that kind of like tough, disciplined, and you mentioned the aura there at Memorial Stadium. Can you maybe speak to that a little bit, and what to avoid a letdown maybe ultimately?
Yeah, that tree of Craig Bowl and all those guys that coached there at Wyoming, coached at different places. Obviously, Coach Bowl was at Nebraska for a long time, but the guys who are at the all the North Dakota places. There's all those schools. I'm not saying necessarily that those guys coach there, but the North Dakota, the South Dakotas, those guys are some good ball coaches. But in history, with working with Coach Bowl, when Coach Bowl took the AFCA president job, Coach Bowl is a really smart man, and he left his team in charge with Jay and left it in good hands. And they're always well coached, tough, hard nosed, what you would expect. And it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a fight. Last week against UNLV, who's undefeated and doing some good things, Dan's doing some good things, they had 2 punt blocks for touchdowns. There's one thing to block a punt, but they got both for touchdowns. And also Wyoming got a touchdown called back when they were moving there. So they're playing them tough and lost by 2 scores. And so they had every opportunity to win last week. And so lost to Utah, who's a top 25 team. So 2 of their losses have been to Utah and also UNLV, 2 really good teams. So yeah, this is going to be a tough, hard-nosed team because of Jay and kind of who he is as a coach, and like I said, former defensive coordinator. And so yeah, it's going to be a battle.
You took my second question, but just another question is with folks like the young guys like Steven and Johari, and just some of the new faces that we saw in terms of preparing. Obviously, there's first stringers, there's a depth chart, but how much of your mind share as a coach or coaches that you're in this? I know that you're in recruiting mode, but in developing mode, so everyone's potentially a first stringer. How much of that effort is that from practice or day to day?
Yeah, and really with the portal and the way things are now, to me, the recruiting is a little bit different in my mind for who we are. Before you kind of go out and look at juniors and sophomores and all that kind of stuff. But, we just got to be smart on the way we recruit that way. But we're always trying to develop our roster, the guys that are here. And the development's got to be quick. It's not like years past where you got guys for, 2, 3, 4 years. You might have a guy for a year. And so being able to develop them is important. Developing guys is important. That's always part of coaching. Yeah, you're going to get ready. The guys are going to play. But you got to get your whole position room ready. And Mike Smith's done a really good job. Maybe at one point we had some discussions. Do we carry 5 or 6 guys in a running back room? And originally I thought 6 was too much, and we had 6 running backs in that room. Thank goodness we did. Because with, Johari getting hurt, Chalk no longer here, to have those guys in that situation. And, we didn't know we were going to play Steve. We thought it was going to be Juju and Lamar. Steve and Sir Autry were the 2 guys that, young guys that kind of got moved up this week. And unfortunately, Juju went down after the first play, but Steve played lights out. To his credit, he played phenomenal.
Hey, Coach. Ben Ross, Cron 4. Danny Scudero leads the whole country in receiving yards. Did you expect him to make this big of an impact so fast, and what's allowed him to find this type of success?
Yes, we knew. And Craig knew all along. Craig and Stutzmann and Billy, who recruited him, we knew he had something special. We saw him at Sac State against us last year. And so we saw his speed, and so and then we saw him in spring. And some of the things he did in spring, we had Nick last year. And so everybody was talking about Nick, and Nick had, won the Triple Crown and had a phenomenal year. But just we saw who we had in Danny, who is as fast a kid had been around. But I've been around other guys that have been fast, but maybe it's track speed. He's got football speed. He's got both. He's quick twitch. He can run. He's quick. He's fast. He can open up. He can cut on a dime. He's a smart football player. He's got everything in Coach Stutzman's offense and looking for the twitchy slot. That's what you're looking for. We kind of got Nick last year was kind of different. He was a tall, rangy guy, and that kind of opened up a new reservoir for Coach Stutzmann, because then he recognized that, his catch radius was huge. You just throw the ball up for Nick and he'll get it. But, yeah. And the thing about Danny is he's run by everybody. I mean, everybody we've played. We've played some good people, and I think everybody saw the kind of speed he has. We knew he could run, but when he was running too past some Texas guys, like, okay, this guy's speed's legit.
You mentioned Nick Nash as well. What does it do for this program when you've got guys like Nick Nash last year winning the Triple Crown, Scudero sort of continuing that? What does that do just as far as putting this program on the map, and maybe, for recruiting and showing guys like, you come play offense here, you can put up big numbers?
Yeah, and Justin Lockhart last year had almost 1,000, and he also got an NFL tryout. But it helped us recruit. It helped us recruit Danny. It helped us recruit Leland. It helped us recruit Malachi and Mason. Some of the guys that we brought in, Johari and different guys. And so hopefully you guys see that there's a system here. We're going to get the wide receivers of football. And I think it will definitely help us in recruiting. We don't have a ton of money in revenue sharing like, the big boys do. But hopefully what we have and being able to see that they can be, featured in this offense. And a lot of guys can eat. It's not just for one receiver. I think it will bode well for us next year because it helped us this year in recruiting.
Aaron Johnson with the Mercury News, and with the running back room being Lamar and Soto, with the injury early, and then Floyd not playing, is that what we're going to expect seeing forward to mix with Radcliffe and have a Soto?
Yes, with Juju in there, but also Sir Autry. Sir was the guy that actually was probably we thought was going to play last week. Sir's kind of like Jabari, smaller back but fast, and so that's why we moved Sir up to get some practice reps, because when Jabari went down, like, well, let's replace him with Sir. But the way things happened on Saturday, Juju went down, and Coach Stutz and Coach Smith went with Steve, and he played phenomenal. But yeah, that's what we probably end up seeing with Lamar and also Steve in there, with some sprinkling of the other two guys too, with Juju and Sir.
And then is this injury looking serious, or you expect him back sometime soon?
Yeah, he's back. He practiced today. He's fine.
Okay. And then with the Floyd Chalk situation, what's going on with him?
He's looking to go elsewhere. I mean? It's all the red shirt piece of it, and so we get it. It's that time of the year where guys play the 4 games. I don't have anything bad to say about, Chalk. He gave us 2 good years, and I'm grateful for him. He's a great kid. But it's just the day and age now, the way we do things with the portal, redshirting. Guys make decisions which is best for them, which we get. And so we had to make decisions that was best for us. And, so we both moved on. And so he's going to, find somewhere else after this year. And so wish him all the best.
And then back to Scudero, just I know Stutzmann was very big on like getting him as soon as he like entered the portal. Like, were you aware of that? And then kind of what was that process like getting him to come here?
Oh yeah, he was a guy that was top on our list. If you entered the portal, local kid too, which helped. You know what I mean? Yeah, I guess I should. My mind started to wander to past Wyoming. Like, just got to focus on this game because we're gonna have a hard time keeping him. I mean, the word's out. You know what I mean? It's just like people see him, like, okay, who's this guy? And so, we'll have a hard time keeping him next year. But and he's been phenomenal. And then we saw him in the spring, and all the things doing in the spring is like, oh my gosh, is this for real? And I could see Craig light up. Like Craig had this new little toy that that could do all these things. You know what I mean? Let me try this with them. Let me try this with them. And so yeah, all the things that he's doing, we saw in spring and fall camp.
Hey, Coach. Niles Hall with the Spear. You and Coach Stutzmann both won CBS's Coach and Coordinator Award, Week Award. Can you explain what getting that type of recognition with that award means for you guys?
Well, you're humbled and you're grateful for those that voted for you, and however that award came about, I really don't know how it comes about, but yeah, I've been doing this a long time. You know what I mean? I'm grateful, but yeah, we're just trying to get W's.
And then you guys, a couple of times this season, you guys have been bouncing back from losses. In this position, wiping away a win. What is the difference?
It's the mentality has got to be the same every week. I mean, you got to always start from zero. It's a new week, and so whether you win or you lose, if you lose, you can't feel sorry for yourself, and if you win, you can't pat yourself on the back. You got to just continue to press forward. We recognize that those losses were close losses, and those are hard losses. I mean, you're devastated, but you got to find a way to come back, and so those are hard to come back from. Winning is hard to come back because you start to, believe whatever people are saying on social media or whatever, and you just gotta erase all that stuff on your mind, whether the pain from losing or the adulation from winning, and just go back to work, and that's the mindset.
Nick Urias with KSJS. Coach, you kind of spoke on, in the preseason just about your depth at the offensive line, but back-to-back weeks with 0 sacks allowed. I mean, what do you like from that group right now? And you're kind of getting more of a balanced attack right now within that ground game.
Yeah, we were excited this past week because, we could run the ball on our terms. And we ran the ball well, and just against a really good team. I mean, those guys, previous week they had like 9 sacks against New Mexico State. And so we could run the ball. We could run the ball to finish the game. We could run the ball in 3rd and short. We ran the ball in the red zone. So doing that kind of stuff, it's just going to open up so many different things, for us to, I don't know if we're looking balanced, so to speak. We're just going to, take what people give us. And if you're trying to lift off and, everybody play deep, then we're going to run the football. And, and so the way we were able to do all of that is definitely going to help us. But yes, the O-line's been playing well. Happy for them to go 2 games and, whatever, throw the ball like 90 times or whatever it is. And not to have any sacks is a testament to the players. Doing a good job. Coach Estes, who coaches them. And Walker gets rid of the ball quickly. It's part of the offense. We're a rhythm offense, and Craig, he's a mastermind in offensive football and what he's trying to do. And so, yeah, we're always got things that we're going to get rid of the ball quickly. We got outlets, we got answers. If you pressure us, if you play coverage and different coverages, and so I think it's a combination of both. The O-line doing a really good job, and Walker getting rid of the football.
And then at Wyoming, at Utah State, the next 2 weeks, does the preparation change for you guys just going into altitude and just this road trip coming up?
No, not really. I mean, I've been doing this for so long, and a lot of times I feel like I chase ghosts that way. Sometimes you travel different time zones, leave 2 days ahead, some days you do that, you play well, sometimes you don't. I don't know if there's an exact formula. We're not really talking to our kids about it. Just kind of go ready, and just kind of go. It's like I said, I've done both. I've done when we got into altitude and prepared for it, and we played well, and also we played bad. Sometimes we didn't prepare for it, played well, played bad. So this time we're just going to practice and go up there and see what happens.
How you doing, Coach? Nick Austin with the
Yeah.
Reality. As a head coach, what is the mindset knowing that sort of on any given game you can have 3, potentially maybe even 4 guys that can kind of go off in the offensive room for 100 yards and a touchdown?
I think it definitely helps us there. I think it helps us. Like if you had Danny, people could, try to bracket him or get a safety over the top or press him and play him. I don't think people want to press him. Nick was more of a big receiver, and he kind of like if he was, wasn't twitchy like Danny, but he's big and strong. And if he was covered, you just throw the ball up and Nick would catch it over you. Where Danny's more of a twitchy guy, so pressing Danny's not the answer. And with him being so elite at that, so you're thinking, okay, we'll concentrate on him. But then on the edges, you got Leland and Kyrie, both guys who can fly. So it's almost like pick your poison. And then inside, Jackson's one of our fastest kids on our team. So we have a tight end that can run. Matt Coleman is back now, so we're happy that Matt's back healthy. He was injured, and he got injured in the first game, and he was kind of hampered, ever since that until last week. And so you got a guy like Matt that's a quick route runner. Jackson that can blow the top off, and is inside is been a really steady receiver, tight end. And like you said, to have those guys on the edge, Leland, Kyrie, with Danny in the middle, I think we're a hard team to defend. And then if you try to lift everybody and like, okay, we're going to just play coverage and take everything away and play 3 high and 3 cloud and all these things, okay, and then we'll run the football. And so I think being able to show people that we could do all of it, you pick your poison. And Walker is getting really good. Even if people try to disguise certain things and maybe rotate late or do stuff late, he's way better now than he was last year and seeing that kind of stuff. And, it gives us confidence. But we still got to go execute. But I think having 3 explosive guys with those 2 guys in the middle, with the running backs that we have, and Walker operating at a high level, and, to the question of the O-line protecting, I like where we're at. Hopefully we can just keep going like that. I feel like after the first week, we've just been kind of ticking upwards, and hopefully we continue to tick upward.
Last press conference after the game, Coach Ken and I, we brought the question of like where parts of the defense maybe that needs to be working or tightened up. We talked about like these delayed routes or drag routes that were kind of killing you guys, and maybe can you just go over like what needs to happen or tighten or personnel groups that you see that need to be kind of shored up or whatnot?
Yeah, that's always a tough deal. When you're in a zone coverage, they kind of take out one side of the zone with some vertical routes, and then they delay a guy, and he ends up taking that area that was vacated. And so sometimes that can be tough depending on what the call is defensively. And they got us on a couple of those for sure. So we've been working through that, and going through some of those issues in practice and in meetings and stuff like that to try to shore some of that up moving forward. But yeah, it can be difficult. I've seen it. I mean, I was watching some games this weekend, and it happened to a few teams I saw on film, just watching TV games. So it can be tough, but we're working on it.
And probably from game to game, or maybe particularly Wyoming, how much of it your scheme or installation for the week or so versus like we just got to see what we get, and is it kind of a mix of 50-50, or it seems like you guys are always adjusting on the fly?
Yeah, I mean, you have your game plan going into a game, but that can change quickly what the team is giving you offensively. And so we have answers on, particular things that they might do, and we work on those things. Hey, this is an adjustment we might do if they're doing this. And if they're doing this X thing, then we're going to do Y, whatever it may be. But we have enough in our arsenal that we can make that adjustment pretty quickly. And now with the pads that you have on the sideline, you can see those in real time and get those adjusted. Whereas in the past, you had to write everything down during the first half and go to the, halftime and work through some of those things on paper. Now you get it instantly, and you can really, address some of the things right away.
Aaron Johnson with the Mercury News, and the defense forced 3 interceptions. Just what did you think of like reading the ball in the air, and what did you like from the performance of that aspect of it?
Yeah, it was big. We needed to, we talked about that, I think, in the last press conference, how do you get some more interceptions? And I said, we just keep working the deal, and they come in bunches. And sure enough, they did, you know what I mean? And so it doesn't change. You always got to, a lot of times it's a defensive back that's in position to make some of those plays, and they have to actually look to make a play. A lot of times some DBs get panicked in some situations and just trying to lunge for the receiver and not locate the football. And that's when you get a flag, a penalty, and that's the type of thing. And so we just talked about, hey, locate the ball. You're good enough to go find it, go make a play. You'll have plenty of opportunities in this game to do so. And we capitalize on 3 of them, and there's 2 that I feel like we left out there that we probably could have got as well. So, but again, each game is a different deal. We got to keep plugging away, and hopefully we get some more opportunities, down the line in those situations.
And then what did you like from Larry Turner Gooden stepping up for Jalen Paul Williams?
Yeah, he did a great job. He stepped in, we kind of sharing time, a little bit this year already with him. And then, got put in that starting spot, and he did a nice job in this last game. Still some things to clean up, some coverage checks and such, but he did a really nice job. And, I think that, he's getting more and more comfortable in being in that leadership role, because as a safety, you kind of have to run the show back there and make sure we're on the same page. And he's getting more and more comfortable with that.
And then the defense, I believe, opponents against San Jose State have gone 9 for 10 in the past 3 games on 4th down, and just kind of like, has that been like a point of emphasis to just like getting better at closing out in those situations?
Yeah. It's kind of like, we talked about 3rd downs last year and made some improvements in that area this year. And, I dispute a couple of those that I've looked at on films, particularly that one on the goal line. I thought that we did stop them, but we didn't, it's according to them. So, some of those, 4th and inches are kind of sometimes tough to keep a guy from getting that. But, again, it's trying to get off the field as fast as we can, and that's always the point that we're trying to do on defense. Yeah.
And then what have you been seeing from Wyoming's offense in preparation for this game?
Yeah, another team that's real physical. They got a veteran offensive line. Number 72 is just really good. He's a mauler. He's a special player up front for them, and all 3 of those guys in the middle interior part of their offensive line have played a lot of snaps. They've got 3 really good running backs. One's a true freshman that's kind of dynamic. He can run. He's elusive. And they have a bruiser, number 22, that comes downhill and he make you miss that way. And then they have a receiver that's caught a lot of balls for them, and he's really quick and agile and elusive. And the quarterback's played a few games now and got some experience under his belt. I mean, it was 3-0 against Utah. That was a top 20 team, earlier this year. So it's a good outfit. And we have to, it's a tough place to play in Laramie. I played there a lot of times, and I know how that is, the crowd and all the elements that go with that. And so it's another big challenge for us.
Nicky Rice with KSJS. Coach, you kind of gave the rundown on the personnel, but the quarterback you saw last year with Evans Vaboda has made that transition to tight end. Just what have you seen with him in that position, and with him having the quarterback, I guess, IQ, and with him playing that new transition and the new position, just what are you seeing from him in that area?
Yeah, he's transitioned really well. He's a guy that, as you said, he's a bigger quarterback that we face. He started against us last year. So he has that element of understanding coverages, understanding what a defense is trying to do. And he can find himself in those open areas in the zones because he understands that. He's put on all his weight, and, he's doing a good job blocking, so he's made that transition pretty seamlessly. And so, we got to be aware of, where he's at and the things that he can do, because he's still elusive in space because of that background he has as a quarterback, because he was able to run around last year for them at that position. So he's a definite weapon that they have. And number 84, he'd probably be back this week. He's probably a top tight end as far as receiving yards and such. So they've got weapons, and another challenge this week.
How you doing, Coach? Nick Austin with Reality. You just spoke to Jalen Uplet Williams being out last game, but he was pretty active on the sidelines. It sort of looked like he was like an extra coach on the bench. How does that feel, knowing that even whenever he's not on the field, he's sort of still involved in the game that heavily.
Yeah, it's big. I mean, I asked him that, hey, you watch the far side of the field for me on the routes and what you're seeing on that side of the field, and get the call and help me out what you're seeing and who's not right and what have you. And he was doing a great job of that, stepping into that, coach's role for me, another eye, a couple eyes that he can see the other side of the field. And so he did a great job. He was engaged, as you can see. I mean, he was all in and trying to help the guys when they came on the sideline, talking to them. This is what I see. And, he being a captain, it showed, and that's where we needed his leadership in those situations. And he definitely proved that.
And the last couple of games, the D-line has really been getting home recently. What have you seen from them as far as their improvement throughout the season, and where do you hope to see them grow?
Yeah, we had 4 sacks. That was a big improvement, and they're just getting better. Like everybody on our defense, they're just starting to, we have some new faces in there, and so getting these reps and playing good teams, they're starting to just keep getting better and better and better as they go along. Again, everything starts up front, and I'm really pleased with that rotation that we have. All those guys running in and out in that group. It's kind of almost like a hockey change, this line shift, and new wave comes in there. But all those guys have really taken ownership and not letting the level of play slip, regardless of who's in there. And hopefully we just keep that going.
This past game, obviously Walker was in sync, and you kind of look like you in his zone. And I remember the question, but with things happening now, where do you see? What does the roof look like? What does the ceiling look like? You're expanding out.
Yeah, that's a good question, because every week you're trying to get better at something, and we felt like we played a pretty clean game. You look at the grades, you look at the film, being able to go out there. I think we had 9 drives, 5 touchdowns, and the last drive was to close out the game. And those percentages of scoring touchdowns with those amount of drives, really good. But there's also some things that we could have gone 8 for 8. And a lot of those things that stopped us was kind of self-inflicted wounds, so we got to go ahead and get those things cleaned up. But I don't know where the roof is. We just got to keep on going up. And I like where our team is at. I like where our offense is at. And I like the confidence. And our guys are playing with I want to say loose as in careless, but a confident, having fun, and not afraid of making mistakes. And that's the way you want it, because you can't play perfect every game. But for the guys to go out there and just cut it loose and have fun and, just execute your assignments. And that's what it looks like. And it was fun to be out there with those guys.
So Walker, with week 1 to just what we're seeing now, and you're watching these like scanning, resetting, but still quick. And what is, like, for a layman, what's going on in there?
We always talk about for the quarterback room, and really as a whole offensive unit, I've always said it all starts with your eyes. And then what your eyes see, your brain processes, and then your body is able to react off of that. Your brain tells your body what to do. And there's lag in between that. When you first start out playing football, you first start out in an offense, or anything that you do in life, right? In the beginning, there's a lot of lag between what your eyes see, what your brain processes, and how your body reacts to that situation. For Walker right now, that lag in between from eyes to brain to body is shortening down pretty quick. He's feeling and he's looking and he's operating at a level with his receivers, his offensive linemen, his tight ends, and his running backs. Everybody's starting to gel together. And what you're starting to see is everybody's starting to see the game the same way. Guys are seeing things the same way. And that's what it feels like. Same with the coaches. We're all seeing the game the same way. The players are starting to pick up on that, and guys are executing at a high level. So really excited to see where we're going to go and take off from here.
Aaron Johnson with the Mercury News, and then as of today, heading into the Wyoming game, Danny Scudero leads the nation in receiving yards. Just what has he brought to the team, and then what is it like to see, once again, the offense kind of creating these like big plays for him?
He brings speed, explosiveness. He loosens the box up. He gets safeties to play high over the top. And what it does is it opens up a lot of guys around him. And he's the hardest worker. I mean, he's out there early. We got to tell him to relax, and slow down a little bit. But at the same time, too, though, he's not a vocal leader. He exemplifies playing with passion. And he is the guy that just by his juice and his energy. Now, when he's on the field, he completely changes into a different person, right? You can see on his head nods and he's kind of saying whatever, but he's really not saying it to the defense. He's just saying it to himself and just fired up. He's very similar. Nick Nash was here at the game. And before the game, I think it was the day before, I was able to talk to Nick. And I said, man, this kid has the same type of passion, and off the field, he's very similar, like you, just mellow guy. And after the game, Nick goes, man, I got to spend some time with him, away from the facility. I got to see him in the game. He goes, man, he does remind me of me. And that's who Danny is. He's a hard worker. He's a fiery competitor, and he's super talented. So when you have those three things, it's fun to watch, and it's scary to be lined up across from that. But then everybody has been playing at that level in the last, I would say, 10 quarters, and it's really fun to watch.
And then I interviewed Danny Sullivan from Archbishop Midi this morning.
Yeah.
And he kind of mentioned that before the Sacramento State game, he kind of had you on the phone, and he said Danny Scudero is going to score a touchdown against you guys tonight. And then, he did. And then from that point on, were you very aware of when he went into the transfer portal, we need to get this guy?
Yeah, it was one of those things where, he's like, when I first got the job and I go to Midi and he goes, I got the perfect guy for you. I said, okay, where is he? Is he here? Is he a senior? He's still available. He's like, oh, no, he's at another school. I'm like, well, we can't touch him, And it was one of those things where you're like, okay, well, let's just kind of keep an eye on him. If he jumps in the portal, we take Danny Sullivan's word for it. And he scores like Danny said, he tells, hey, Danny Scudero is going to score a touchdown against you guys. I'm like, awesome, cool. And he scores a touchdown. I'm like, all right, that's awesome. And then it doesn't matter. He doesn't play for us. But right when he jumped to the portal, first call was to Danny. Second call was to the other Danny. So it was Danny and Danny after he jumps to the portal. And it's like, we got to get him. We got to, what does he need? What does he need to feel comfortable about? I know this is his home, but we got to go ahead and put our best foot forward to get this guy, because he's a game changer for us.
Hey, Coach, Niles with the Spear. When coming to last week's game, it looked like Steve Travesato gave your run game a different look. Can you explain what that look is exactly?
Yeah, I think, you look at every running back that we have, and much like anything else, guys have their different style of running. He is a very patient runner. He sees how things unfold. He's tough. He keeps his shoulders square to the line of scrimmage. And he's always moving forward. Some of the other guys, they may be kind of jumping back and forth and moving all this kind of different ways, where he just kind of just patiently slithers through, and he's a tough guy. I'm glad that he's on our team, and he showed some of that in fall camp. So for him to do that in the game, it wasn't necessarily surprising. It was like, I'm glad he could do that in the game. So that's what he brings to the table. But, you look at also Lamar. Lamar was in the game, and he punished dudes, right? I think he took 2 or 3 guys out for a series or whatnot. And I think that 1-2 punch combination was really good. It was nice to see Juju in there before, he kind of got a little bang, I think a head-to-head thing or whatnot. So hopefully he's back. But in terms of just overall, I thought, Steve brings – and you look at his picture online, right? And he just looks like, you're like, I don't want to mess with that guy. And that's who he is. I call him Baby Scattaboo. He's kind of got that aura, that thing about him. You just can't put your finger on it, but that's a tough dude, and he brings a lot to the table for us.
And then Matthew Coleman, his snap increase from Stanford to last week. Should we expect that moving forward?
100%. It's nice to have Matty back. I think in the Central Michigan, he got nicked up a little bit. It just didn't feel right for a few weeks. But the Matty Coleman that we saw last game, in those snaps, it shows what he can bring to the table and what he did in the bowl game, and really what he did throughout the season last year. And so for us to be where we want to be offensively and win games, as a whole, and contribute to this team, we need Matty Coleman in the lineup, and we need him to play at a high level. And what he was able to do Saturday or Friday night was exactly what we need from him.
And then how do you plan on using all your receivers? You have a lot of good, talented receivers.
We just try to keep them fresh, and we just try to roll them because, like you said, we got a lot of good receivers. Billy's done a great job with those guys. They're confident right now. They're catching the football. They're becoming consistent. And what it does is it's going to go ahead and keep our guys fresh throughout the season. And you can't just worry about Danny or Leland or just Kyrie. I mean, then you got Maddie in the slot. Then you got JC, that's a tight end that's getting catches. And then Coop's very consistent out there too. So, when you have all those guys, it makes it easier to just keep those guys fresh, and hopefully it prolongs the shelf life for all of them together.
Nicky Rice with KSJS. Coach, you guys got Wyoming coming up this weekend on the road. Just what are you seeing from that team defensively? Because they've always been a physical bunch over the years.
It seems like every time we sit here, we talk about who we're going to face. It's the same thing. They're tough. You know what I mean? Like Wyoming, whether it was New Mexico, whether it was Idaho, whether it was Texas and Central Michigan, Stanford, these guys are tough. You know, I mean, when you think of Wyoming football, you think of just guys that are, cowboys. I mean, that's who they are, right? And they're going to be tough guys. They're going to run to the football. They're going to play hard all the way through. They're going to play with their hair on fire. We know that they're going to go out there and give us 3 safety looks like everybody else does in the country right now. They're going to be stout in the run game. They're going to go ahead when they hit you. They're going to hit you hard. You know what I mean? And they have enough guys around the perimeter when they play man to man that, you're like, okay, there's some matchup issues here that we got to try to find some things. So I think just overall, and Aaron Bowl, I think he's Coach Bo's son, and that guy's a legend. And, it's one of those things that's in his DNA, and so it's going to be a good challenge for us. I think they got to see some of the things that we did last year. And as the game went on, they progressed and got better. So we're going to be having our hands full at Wyoming, and that's a tough place to play. But at the same time too, though, I think we're rolling on the offense, and we got to just keep it going and keep that confidence up.
And then, last week versus New Mexico, just on the top of my head, with you and Coach Ken, since you guys have been here, it seems like that was like the first kind of like closeout moment that we've seen in a 1-score game with you guys, where you guys kind of got to rely on the run game, just with, Walker keeping it on that final play to really ice it, just how difficult is it for these defenses going forward that, you guys just got so much weaponry at your disposal to, in so many different layers within your offense?
Yeah, it's funny because, I'll say this. We have great offensive coaches, assistant coaches, and everybody has great ideas. And you got, Mike Smith with the running backs and getting those guys ready. And he's looking at some short yardage stuff. You got Mike Judge, who, came from the NFL, and there's a lot of different fingerprints that he has on this offense with some things. So, always give those guys, and John Estes, and give those guys a lot of, freedom and trust those guys. So when they come to the table with, hey, 12 personnel, and we're going to run this formation, and I'm like, you guys like it? And they're like, yeah, it's going to be good because of da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, all right, let's go ahead and do it. And we practice it, and it looks good. And at this point, with how we are gelling as a staff and how the players see the game the same way we do, we're not afraid to go ahead and get into 12 personnel and run the football and close out a game. I think probably earlier this year or last year, it would have been probably pretty dicey. But right now, I think the trust level and the confidence and the way the guys are accepting coaching and preparing to play, it gives us a lot of confidence to do some things that maybe defenses aren't really used to going against versus this style of offense. So we always want to have a formation or two that's maybe a little different that could throw them for a loop that they might not be ready for. And to close out a game like that was huge. That's something that Coach Ken has been talking about for the last year and a half. We couldn't do that last year, right? We had 3 opportunities, I think. And so to do that this game versus a team like New Mexico, who usually closes out teams running the football, I thought that was a good statement for us offensively and gave us a lot of confidence going forward.
How you doing, Coach? Nick Austin with Ziality. The other Nick just is for Tama as well, considering Walker's now taking that responsibility of running the ball more, or how's that working?
Walker's still not like Lamar Jackson or anything, you know what I mean? So we're not going to ask him to run, but there are just some times in games where we're going to ask him like, hey, you got to, this is what you got to do. And it was funny, before that last play or whatnot that he pulled the ball, we didn't talk about it. We talked about it all week about certain situations to do some of those things, but we didn't talk about it. We were in the huddle on the sideline during the timeout, and I just saw him kind of talking to some of the receivers. And, when a guy's in the groove like that, you don't mess with it. So you just kind of sit there and you're like, all right, I wonder what they're talking about. And I just sheepishly tap on, Walker's back, and he kind of looks over. I said, what'd you tell Danny there and the guys? He goes, just don't get beat inside. I said, okay. And, then they start going out. And in my mind, I'm like, is he thinking of pulling the football? But you don't want to tell him anything, because the one thing I've learned over the years is never talk to the quarterback right before he goes out, because that's the last thing that he can remember, and he's not going to be able to operate like instinctually. So the whole time as they're going out, I'm like, is this guy thinking of pulling the football? And they brought that extra defender and fired him off the edge. And I'm like, and he pulls it and runs. They're like, oh my gosh, what a dude, you know. And that was a moment for him, I think, that showed that he could do things like that, and he's back, and that's what we need to win football games and ultimately put us on track to win a championship here. So.
And I asked Coach Ken about the mindset from a head coach's perspective, but I also want to know yours as well. Whenever you have 3, maybe even 4 guys that can go out there and get 100 yards and a touchdown, or more than that, what does that do for you? Does that sort of open up the playbook even more than it already is? Like, how's that working for you?
It makes it a lot easier to call games, because, you know, if you're just one-dimensional, you really feel like, gosh, I got to make this work and I got to make that work. And sometimes you need a couple of, like Coach calls it for quarterbacks, breather plays. But there's also breather plays for coordinators too. You know, when you can run the football and you could just call a run play and then let that play happen, you get 3 yards, you get 5 yards, whatever it is. But you can kind of just, all right, my next play call, if we get this, is going to be this, or I'm going to set them up for this, rather than just dialing up passes the whole time. You know, that's also challenging. Or conversely, if you're just dialing up runs the whole time, it gets a little tough. But it felt like in the game, it gave a lot of confidence to our O-line. I mean, those guys were like this the whole time, because they were dominating the line of scrimmage, and the running backs were they just had a different look in their eyes. And it really helped out, because those guys are just playing coverage the whole time. They don't want to get beat deep, you know, and I get it. So that's the whole point of the offense. It's a multiple choice offense. You want to play coverage? We got to run the football. You want to load the box? We'll throw it over your heads. So it was nice to do that, because last year I think we had some challenging moments. We weren't able to do that versus some of the defenses that we're getting now that we got last year.
Last question for Coach.
And you just mentioned, you know, the O-line protecting a lot better. Does that sort of allow for longer developing plays to be called whenever those chances arise during the game?
No, not really. I think what it does, it just helps. You know, when Walker did a great job against Stanford. He threw the ball like 58 times, and I mean, gosh, there's probably like 2 or 3 throws. I wish probably could have done that, but I think it just it helps everybody's morale, because sometimes when you throw the ball the whole time, maybe the running backs or maybe the O-line's like, hey, maybe, can we get some love and, you know, whatnot. And if you're just running the ball the whole time, the receiver's like, I'm just running out here to run out here. But when you have a nice little balance, it really feels, and it's a complete game where you're getting a lot of efficient and explosive plays in both sides. I think everybody at the end of the day feels like they've been included in the win and has been able to make their mark on that win. And so that, to me, that last game, being able to run the football for over 100-something yards, 150 yards, and being able to throw it over 300, to me, that's a great day. If we can do that, throw for over 300, run for 150 or more, I think that's a great game.